Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the I Give webinar. I hope that you are all connected to our audio for the conference right now. Sorry, we're moving ahead. So a couple of housekeeping matters before we begin. This webinar will be recorded and a link will be emailed to all of the participants. We will also post it on the iGive YouTube channel, and it will be posted at support.igive.com in the webinar archive. All participants will be muted throughout the conversation, but we really do want to hear from you. These webinars are much more effective when we are answering the questions that matter to you most. So all you have to do is, if you follow that red arrow, click on the questions box and type your questions in, and we will either answer them if it's appropriate during the conversation or at the end during our Q&A time. Also, if your dashboard does go away, which it sometimes does, just follow that blue arrow. You click on that orange button and it will expand once again. So we are so glad to have you today. And my name is Lena Scott, and I am part of the team here at iGive. I am also joined by Rob Grosshandler, our founder. And we're really excited to have today a very special guest. Sherry Quam-Taylor from Quam-Taylor LLC is joining us. And Sherry's company specializes in helping organizations grow to their next level of success. She has walked in the shoes of a small growing not-for-profit herself when she was the director of operations and communications for a Chicago-based not-for-profit with operations in India. And in her first year, she was instrumental in helping to triple the organization's revenue, as well as raising its profile from a regional organization into a major national presence. So we are really excited to bring her skills to the table and help you, our causes. So Sherry, thank you so much for joining us today, and let's get started.
Thanks, Lena and Rob. Well, thanks for having me today. So guys, today we're talking fundraising, and specifically for those organizations who are or may someday find themselves really at one of these, what I would call funding plateaus. And so I work with organizations who really honestly have amazing missions and are passionate about what they're doing and have risen to a certain level, and that may be a small, medium, or large organization, but for some reason that drive and energy and passion that's got you that far, you've plateaued. And typically we find that it just means that those processes or what you've been doing can get you to a certain level, but sometimes you have to back up and change a few things to then get you up again to that next level of success. So I've been able to identify quite a few common issues that I'm always digging into with my clients. So I'm going to talk through 5 of those today that are pretty high level, but I'm also going to give you some insights on those pitfalls that I see recurring and you can maybe watch for in your own organizations. So first we're going to talk about this big concept of being reactive, or the issue is if you're just being reactive and you're not being proactive. So everything I talk about in coaching leaders of nonprofits really revolves around this concept, and your revenue revolves around this concept. As Lena said, I've been in your shoes, and there comes this time where, you know, we know as leaders we're wearing way too many hats. There's ideas coming at us daily. We have ideas. There's so much to do. There's so much hustle that we are responsible for when we're growing a nonprofit. But sometimes we kind of get used to that mode of operation, and we really have to push the pause button and say, hold on a second. Where is this going to go? We've got to put a plan in place. We've got to streamline. We've got to stop just being reactive to everybody's ideas and our ideas and kind of working how we have in the past, and we've got to put a plan in place and streamline our entire approach. So I want us to always remember, and I think this is harder for maybe some of the smaller organizations, we are running a business to support a mission or a program. And so like any business that is trying to scale, no matter what you do, there are just things we need to put in place in our day-to-day processes. So I will also say that putting on that business cap and being mindful of that is going to help you talk to your major donors in a more professional way and in probably a more relatable way. Often many of them are running businesses. You want to be able to speak their language. Number two, a common challenge that I see most organizations facing is part of this being proactive is saying, I'm going to get into a new rhythm of managing my staff, my organization, everything really. And that means we all know, there are daily tasks, there are weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual. Get in this rhythm of analysis, of looking at data, of just accountability into the time that your organization requires. Things like that might be looking at quarterly projections. You may have rolled out a new campaign last year, and okay, now that it's rolling, it's supposed to be at peak performance. What are those quarterly metrics we're trying to hit? Put it in your Outlook calendar. Stop and look at the numbers and make sure you don't need to make some tweaks. We're all so busy, all of a sudden it's too late, and you could have course corrected much earlier.
Sherry, one of the things that I learned, I went to a seminar a number of years ago with Franklin Covey that was based on the program of Stephen Covey, who's a well-known organizational expert. And one of the recommendations that he made was to break down, take some time every single morning and break down your plan and say, here are A, B, and C kinds of tasks that need to get accomplished. Your A tasks are things that have to get done today. Your B tasks are things that are important, but maybe they can get done on that weekly basis, or sometime this week I need to get to it. And your C tasks are your, more long-term strategic kind of, maybe your monthly or your quarterly kind of tasks. And if you as a leader or your team is doing that on a regular basis, you're a lot less likely to miss some of those things that you need to get done. Also, look, we all know that the easy, fun, low-hanging fruit is the stuff we want to do first, but sometimes that isn't the highest priority. Sometimes we really need to take some of those A tasks, which are harder and are going to take up a big chunk of our day, as opposed to the stuff that can wait till like a quarterly analysis. And we have to be able to evaluate that and look at those. So I think that your idea of being proactive and actually mapping those kinds of things out and looking at what needs to get done today versus what needs to be reviewed quarterly or annually really is going to help you move forward in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Lena. And I would say if you are the one leading the organization, set a good example. The third one is, you've got to be the person driving the plan, driving the metrics, holding everybody accountable to this rhythm that I always call it. And so if your staff does not understand where they're going, or they do not have clear metrics, when I say clear metrics, I mean, especially from a development standpoint, everyone needs to know what they're responsible for, how many connections, what the monthly or annual revenue that person is responsible for. Whatever it is that's tied to that person's job description, make sure they know the types of things you're going to be looking at and the types of things you expect them to be reporting on, and hold them accountable to it. So as I said, in each section, I'm just going to really highlight a couple pitfalls. Some of them are kind of some big concepts, and some are some just quick and easy takeaways. But I would say my biggest advice would be, when you get to this point of plateau and something has to change for your organization to change, really don't be afraid to go 2 steps back, because you will end up 3 steps forward. Don't be afraid to stop and say, you know what, it is time for us to implement this software, even though we've kind of created our own way of doing something. Or it can be anything. It can be anything big or small, but you've got to invest in the correct processes to help your organization grow. The other thing, once you've really grabbed onto this mindset, you are going to have to carve out a bit of time in your new day, in your new month and year, to actually do this. I'm such a person who lives by a calendar and my alarm's going off, but you've got to put time in your day to have that quick huddle in the morning, this 5 minutes, or every Tuesday you have XYZ call. You've got to get it in your calendar, and the hardest part is just getting in the new routine and sticking to it. But you will see results. And then the third concept is you, and I touched on this, you are the leader. You are giving the marching orders. I say stop letting everyone take you off your course. And I don't mean that of, it's my way or the highway, but it's really, they need to hear from you as the leader or even the development leader, your new way of working so that you are pushing towards that new level and you don't easily fall back into that push and pull and kind of panic mode that we often operate in.
Well, and then the other thing, Sherry, is that if you do have a plan, you can say to someone who's bringing a great idea, you know what, that is a great idea. Here's where we're going to put it in our plan. This isn't a today or this week thing, but absolutely, let's make sure that we address this by next quarter so that then they're being heard. You're not doing my way or the highway, but at the same time, you're not letting your active plan get derailed by something that may or may not work. Now, if someone comes up with a brilliant idea, and we could talk about this later, maybe they met someone on the train that has promised to give you $1 million. Okay, that one can jump to the head of the line.
We all want that.
We all want that. But, at the same time, if you've done your work, and as we continue to talk about it, you're going to know where that idea fits in so that it can come into the right part of the rhythm of your organization.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm a firm believer in, put that parking lot concept is awesome. Let's put it there. We're going to come back to it and absorb it and see how it may or may not fit in. So, Len, a great lead in. You said we need a plan. And so this obviously, this makes sense, right? Everybody needs a plan to grow their business. But, I think early on when nonprofits are starting or as they're evolving, things are changing fast and things that we may thought would work fantastic, we've maybe had to course correct a little bit. So once you've committed to really this new concept of taking this proactive, planned, methodical plan and implementing that through your organization, you have to be able to share those details with the donor. You have to be able to sit down person to person and talk about the growth of your organization, talk about the growth of your mission, help a donor know the impact that they could make in your organization. So one concept, let's just take a second to talk about is oftentimes when we talk about our nonprofits, it's as appropriate, we have this great mission, we're impacting this many people, we're in this country, it is obviously very focused on the mission. And there's oftentimes very detailed plans about that rollout. You also have to have a plan for your organization's business. How are you going to grow? How are you looking forward to staffing? The reason I'm talking about all of this is when you are soliciting a gift, and for some of you, it might be a major gift, might be $1,000. Some of you might be looking at a $20,000 ask. You've got to be able to sit across from another businessman or woman and say, here's the impact your gift will make on the growth of our organization, which is supporting the mission. So I'll always say, I want to hear you speak like a business person, talking to a business person if you're going to be soliciting. So we've got to get a plan in place so that you can show that impact. I would also ask you to really be able to be in tune to know what is the real need of your organization. I'll touch on this in just a little bit, but we don't want to know, I'll always say, well, we brought in $300,000 last year, so maybe we could do $310,000. That'd be great. It's like, no. Do you need $500,000 for it to be maximized, for XYZ to happen, for this many lives to be impacted? Own what you need and present the need confidently. That will come across tenfold to any sort of donor or any sort of presentation that you're involved in. So a couple examples. Okay, so I've got a couple what I've called external examples and internal. Externally, once you have identified your need for this organization, actually they have a $1.1 million need, sit down, know your numbers, know your budget, know what each one of your programs costs. Feel confident sitting down saying, this is what this costs. It's going to allow us to do X, Y, Z, and this represents our total need for the year. This is a very confident way for you to have, a cheat sheet in a meeting, but also to be able to hone in and listen to the questions that donor is asking, where they may be pinpointing and saying, hey, don't talk to me about this this program right here. It allows you to start understanding what they're really interested in your organization as well.
Sherry, these numbers are pretty big, and I think you mentioned it before, but I think that it's helpful to have a plan like this even when you have smaller numbers. I'm part of a board for a not-for-profit that's a very tiny not-for-profit. Our entire goal is $20,000 for the calendar year, but we do have expenses. We do have a run that we organize. We do have some other events, mailings, things like that, and when we take the time to break this down, we can explain to a potential donor, here's exactly where we're going, and we took your advice and we said that, you know what though, our next step would be to provide some scholarships. And so if we had another $5,000, here's where we would be giving this money. So we were able to break it down just like this and say, here's what our budget is and here's exactly what we're going to do with the dollars if you give them to us.
That's great. And I would say this also, to me, managing nonprofits is all about transparency. Lean into those hard conversations that maybe, naturally you want to avoid. No matter the size of your organization, be transparent. Show them where their gift is going. Show them the impact their gift is going to make. So across the board, for small, medium, and large size organizations, know what your, use the word metrics a lot, but know what your metrics are. Know how you're growing strong. Know where your funding's coming from. Be able to say, you know what, last year our funding, we were able to allocate, this percentage here and this percentage here. Speak about it in strength. Know where your revenue is coming from an individual donor, from a foundation, from businesses, whatever it is. Have exhibits so that you can show the donor and give the donor confidence that they're investing in your organization. So these are just a couple really easy exhibits that probably anybody could put together just with some quick data in your organization. Okay, a couple internal. Now we're going to be a little scary and look at some Excel spreadsheets here, but I'm going to try to really explain this well. So all of you, I'm sure, or most of you, know what a profit and loss is. This is your bookkeeper, your accountant running some reports at the end of the month for you. Oftentimes I will find that we really focus, as we should, on expenditures for our books. I'm going to really challenge you to annually make it that annual rhythm to really dive into and divide up your revenue based on your donor segments. So, for example, this organization says, on a monthly basis, January, we're forecasting, we're doing sales forecasts. We're a business here. A foundation, grassroots, our existing major donors. This organization had a real initiative to bring new major donors alongside, monthly donors, all of these things. Outline how much money is coming in per donor segment so that you can, you have something to be accountable to from a staffing point of view, and B, you don't get stuck in quarter three and say, whoa, what do you mean our numbers aren't what they were? What went wrong? This allows us those numbers and allows us to forecast and to really be reflective on a monthly basis.
Sure, you've got the arrow on grassroots. And one of the things that you and I talked about was that it's really important to be able to also look back. So here we are in April, and you can look back at your cause and say, well, we planned on earning this, but we only really brought in this, and why? And so using a tool, say like I give, for some of your grassroots fundraising, it lets you look back and say, well, this is what people spent, or hey, we put something in our newsletter that month and the number went way up and we exceeded our goal for this month, but we didn't put anything in the newsletter in March and we missed our goal. So that can help you try and understand what actions that you want to take and how the actions your organization is taking will directly impact your fundraising.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that a tool like this also allows you to identify, and based on previous years as well, where are those lulls in your funding? Where do we need to maybe implement a campaign? Or, wow, everybody responded to that I Give promotion we did in our newsletter. we need to do that as we prepare for, potentially a slow summer. Many organizations have slow summers because everyone's out traveling on vacation. So it just gives you more information.
Hey, did you know that if everyone's out traveling on vacation and they book their tickets through iGive.com, that a percentage of their travel will go back to that charity?
Lena, that's perfect.
Sorry. Yeah, now the marketer in me couldn't help but jump in with that one.
It was totally unplanned, but perfect timing. Perfect timing. Okay, just one other internal document here. So on a monthly basis, I would recommend, if you're not doing it, get your development team together. Now, honestly, for some of us on this call, that's the one person in the organization. It might be two of you. Whoever is tied to some sort of revenue stream in the organization. So I always recommend that people do a simple one-page spreadsheet where, for example, this one is month of March last year. List out your donor segments. What was your goal? What did you forecast for the month? And then let's talk about it. Wow, we had a lower month than we thought. We thought mid-level donors we were going to be bringing in $5,000, but we only brought in $1,900. What happened? Well, it might be as simple as, we have a pledge and the gift has not come yet, or wow, I've had I don't know, I'm struggling. I got half as many coffees as I thought I would get to be able to meet with people and introduce them. Whatever it is, have these metrics and have some of your indicators, which is what we've put here at the bottom, have it tied to the staff's job description, the metrics that we talked about earlier in the call. This is a way to put it out on the table in a real collaborative way, just to talk about the revenue that's coming into your organization. Okay, pitfalls. I mentioned it. Don't create your budget based solely on what you did last year. Tell me what you need. If you need 2 more staff people, put it in the budget and let's talk about it. And that's kind of like overcoming on this second point, overcoming that barely getting by. I think as we're growing our nonprofits, it's like we have to watch numbers that cost so much. I totally agree. But there does come a time where you're going to tip over that line to say, we have to figure out a way to hire a next person to manage XYZ. So put it in the budget, start telling the story in a confident manner, and your donors will respond to that. Thirdly, only tracking and monitoring expenses. As I mentioned, put in your income for your donor segments. Watch those. And hold your staff accountable to those metrics. Totally a key point here. Okay, third concept. We've all heard this phrase. It seems a bit cliche, but it is a huge part of a huge issue that's holding a lot of nonprofits back. You've got to spend money to make money. It costs money to make money. So oftentimes I think we are a little bit worried, well, is a donor going to ask me a question that my brochures look too nice? Or, what are they going to say if we're doing X, Y, Z? I would rather you be mindful and not be wasting money, but I'd rather have you answer that question confidently and say, you know what, no, actually, I'm investing in this process, or I'm investing in this because we believe, and we've studied and we've talked to professionals, we know this, it's going to help us grow in the end. And to sit down and say, this is my plan to grow the organization so that we can impact this many more lives or whatever. Tell them why you're doing it and tell them why you've made this business decision. So I've just put a list, honestly, off the top of my head that are the most common types of, really, are we going to spend the money on implementing that donor database that, is a few $1,000s a month, or I'm sorry, a year, and really, are we at that point? Bookkeeping services, a copywriter, someone who can really convey your mission and convey why you're different from other people who might be doing the same thing. Graphics, travel, specific collateral for larger donors, investing in different levels of materials that support what each one of your donor segments need. You're going to need to take in different material to go in and talk to somebody about writing a $10,000 check versus someone who you might want to be a $25 a month donor. Those are 2 totally different conversations. You need totally different collateral to go in. to those meetings.
But you know what, Sherry, a lot of times I hear from not-for-profits, but that's great. You know, I don't have to spend the money because I have someone who's like a huge volunteer in my organization and they are a graphic design expert, or they work for a PR firm full time. And I think that while that's awesome and at the very beginning levels, it's great to rely on people, I think that it's really important to realize that when someone's volunteering, even if it is their paid professional job, they're not putting you in the same level of priority as they are their paid professional job. So sometimes it is important to say, hey, you're a great volunteer. We'd love to use you in managing this process, or maybe if it's not opposing your bylaws, you can actually hire that person to work for your organization. But I think that sometimes remembering that volunteers are great, but volunteers have limitations, and that you can actually get further or be a higher priority for someone if you're actually paying them is an important thing to remember.
I would agree, Lena, and I see that honestly in every organization I've worked with, and becoming okay with saying, you know, I'm going to start paying somebody to do that work is a tough hurdle, especially for those of who are in this kind of very small startup phase. But it's really not, as you said, about can they provide quality work, or are they really experts in it? It's simply about time. And if you, oftentimes, you know, it's somebody's friend or some person who has financial knowledge might be doing the books. You know, if you've really said, yeah, I am going to live in this new proactive, metric-driven, you know, rhythm of meetings, and your books aren't being reconciled for 3 months, you know, and it's not by the first of the month, every month, that's going to keep you back from growing your business. It's not going to allow you to do what you're trying to do. So that to me is a perfect example of it's actually might be holding you back from growing because you just don't have the data to run your business like a well-oiled machine. So watch that. I'm not saying don't accept free work. Do it. It's going to get you to a certain point, but just watch it and always be mindful of when, hey, actually that's late again, or you know what, I need to talk to that person and it's 10 in the morning, but they are at their full-time job and I can't speak to them till 6 at night. Those are the types of things that are going to hold you back. Secondly, invest in tools that help you work smarter. I mean, I've already mentioned quite a few of those, but it is hard to make that initial investment in some tools that cost money. But in the end, they're going to help you just work smarter.
Yeah. Also, you know, you want to make sure that the tools that you're using, even if they are free tools, are tools that give you the information you need. So one of the nice things, say, about iGive is that your cause administrator has a cause dashboard. They can see who's shopping, who's joined. Right now, we're running just the last little bit of our promo campaign for iGive, where if people install the iGive button, they get an extra $5 bonus. Well, you want your person who's managing that to be able to look online and see, hey, someone's leaving $5 on the table because they did join iGive, but they didn't install the iGive button. So you want to be working with groups and organizations that are going to help you work smarter.
That's great. Last thing. So I know we're all mindful. Every year we're doing our 990s. We want to report well to our donors. We're all watching our percentages of our management, admin, and fundraising percentages. Awesome. Keep doing that. I will tell you, though, if there is a year of growth or even 2 years of growth where you are having to invest more money, I will say in infrastructure or staff, because you know that it's going to help your organization grow in the long term, I would say be okay with that. Be able to sit down with donors and tell them, you know, actually we have a higher percentage of money we're putting into admin this year because we know in 2018 we're going to be rolling out our second facility to support 50 more people, and we need that momentum early, and you know, and things are going to taper out after that year. It's okay. Tell the story of how you're guiding your organization through the growth. Don't be afraid of it. Okay, we're going to talk board. There's so many things I could say about boards. You know, I see boards where, you know, completely functional, high-performing, and really it runs the gamut. But I think what I want to leave with you on the board topic today, probably my biggest advice would be kind of this concept of, oftentimes we're filling our board with, oh, right, that was, my one of my friend's friend who is in this profession who we think might be a good fit. And we're, instead of really focusing on what is that rock star profile or that type of person, what role is that person fulfilling on my board, we may sometimes just fill it with a name first. So I'm going to really challenge us to say, if I had, a clean slate, what would my board look like from a profile perspective? So here's just a cut and paste I did from a recent client's board analysis, and she was trying to grow her board. It actually is a medical mission organization. She had some great board members, but these are the holes we've identified. We need someone with a finance background to be providing some additional support to the ED. We need someone with governmental connections. We need, of course, people who have connections to influence and wealth. For them, it was, they have a real unique mission. They need PR. They were starting a research arm of this medical organization. We need someone who has extensive medical research background.
Sherry, I'm going to jump in here because Sally just typed a really interesting question that I think is worth looking at right here. She says that her board is completely dysfunctional. So if, and I know that a number of us who've worked with not-for-profits a lot know that that's unfortunately really common. Mm-hmm. So if you already have a board that's not working, how do you get to this place where is it still worth taking that step backwards, like you were talking about earlier in the fundraising, and trying to come up with a plan? Or what would you suggest?
Yeah, and this is where, you've got to lean into it, and you're going to have some difficult conversations. And you're going to have to be brave and have some of these awkward meetings to say, these are the types of things I'm wanting from my board. These are the types of topics I need advice on. And so I want to open up the conversation in this meeting, board members, to maybe additional members we could bring on that could be helping the organization further. That is naturally going to start a conversation about who should come on and, frankly, who should come off.
Well, I know Sally follows up by saying that she's not the CEO, she's development and marketing. And I think that, that is a little bit harder, but yes. I think that we talk a lot in the management world, in the business world, when you think about being in business, about managing up, right? And so I think, Sally, my recommendation to you would be potentially to go to your CEO and say, look, in looking at trying to do my job, one of the recommendations these experts made is having a functional board. So can we take some time to together look at what do we do or how do we move forward? It may be a process, and two, coming up with that plan, it may not be this is going to happen tomorrow. It might be a plan that takes a year or more, depending on how vested some of those board members are. But I think that even starting to have that conversation can be really valuable.
Yeah, and Sally, thanks for the question, Sally. I'll touch on just one other item I'm thinking of that might support you here in the next two slides. So after you've created these profiles, create job descriptions. So Sally, this is kind of what I'm talking about as well. The board members, you've got to set expectations. Board membership is about expectations. Were they told that they should be, I'm giving an example here, providing connections to the development director, maybe 1 connection a month or 5 connections a month? Was that even a topic of conversation when they agreed to come on the board? Things like giving. Was it discussed that board members would be giving before they agreed to serve? Oftentimes it's not. You may know someone has financial capacity and they're just asked to be on the board, but that topic was never broached. So create a job description, and the ED should create a job description, or the board chair. What are the expectations? What does it look like to be a board member for this organization? And then at that point, you can identify and invite candidates onto the board. So oftentimes I think we go a little bit backwards. It's like, oh, that would be an awesome board member. Oh, but wait, what do we need them to do? Oh, okay, and then I'll have that conversation. and then it's like, oh, but wait, but we needed somebody with this expertise. And so it's often just simply done backwards. So pitfalls, expectations, expectations, expectations. I cannot say that enough. Not managing up, that's what Lena said. Even as a development director, and hopefully your ED is really listening to this, hey, I need more people in my funnel of connections and constituents. Could I come in and present to the board my development plan for the year and how they could potentially fit into it? Another one that would be, stick to your term limits. All of your bylaws, I'm sure, have term limits.
And if they don't, they should.
And if they don't,
it's a best practices.
It really is. Even if you have the most awesome board member, have them stick to their term limits, because in the next scenario, you're going to have a board member who maybe was okay, but you're ready for them to step off. And if the board and the group is not used to just that turnover, that's going to be a much more awkward conversation. Stick to your term limits so you can get fresh people on your board. And people who you may have filled on your board initially, and now you realize, well, our organization is growing. I actually need a few people with more of this angle on my board. Allow the board to evolve and grow with your organization. And then lastly, not expecting every board member to give financially. I always want to equip development professionals or EDs. I want them to be able to sit in a room during a solicitation saying, myself and my entire board are behind this organization financially. We're all giving to this organization. We're all sacrificing for this organization, and won't you join us?
Sherry, I think that there are times, however, where it's important to remember that there are certain people that you choose to put on your board who may not be able to write that big check, but there's a reason for them to be on the board. Maybe they have a specific area of expertise that really fills a void. Maybe they're great at that grassroots kind of an organization thing. And that's one of the ways that iGive can actually help. Because your cause administrator, whether it's your development director, your CEO, or a board member, can track who is giving, if you have a board member who has limited excess funds, you can encourage them to utilize iGive for their online shopping. They're not going to be paying anything extra for the purchases they're making online, but yet a percentage of their purchase is going back to the cause, to the organization, and you can track that. So you can say, we have 100% giving from every member of our board, even if that person doesn't have the ability to sit down and write a separate check. Now look, if they're not doing anything, then it may be time to reevaluate what their value is on board. But maybe you've got that person who's got 1 million Twitter followers, and they're young and they don't write a check, but yet they're going to tweet and get a lot of other people engaged with giving through iGive, with participating in your organization and supporting your organization. That might be a very valuable person that isn't just going to be able to write that check.
Absolutely. Yeah, have their financial involvement match what their ability is. Like you said, if this previous example is a medical mission, if there's a new young nurse, he or she may not be able to write a $5,000 or $10,000 check, but they have a huge network. They are passionate about the cause. They can speak well about it. People know that that's a profession. They will have much more energy and really be giving back to the organization in a different way.
Before we move on, Cindy asked the question, said, if you have an awesome board member, why limit the term? That a great board member could come along, but then why not just increase the number of board members you have if at that point? Why would you want to have a term limit if someone is awesome?
Well, I would say first, look at your bylaws. I'm sure buried in everybody's bylaws, at some point, these are the rules. You can do an amendment and say, you know what, you can vote to be on a second term. Just have it part of the vote in the process and say it was an active choice to have this person stay on. They want to stay on. They're in the middle of helping in this one area. That's totally fine. I'm just saying I'm probably cautioning more so on the opposite side to give you the excuse or the reason to bring it up in the meeting to revolve someone out and someone better in.
I also think, I've been on some boards where we have had that difficult conversation and said there's a term limit, but had someone go off the board for a year or 2 years and then brought them back, because I think that there is always the fear, here we're talking about fundraising plateaus, but there's also the fear that an organization becomes stagnant if you're listening to the same voices over and over again. And so sometimes being forced out of your comfort zone, even if someone is an awesome board member, if they're really that awesome, they're going to stay involved, even if they're taking a break from a year or two from that board. I think that it's a matter of how do you position it, how do you communicate it with them, let them know how valuable they are, let them know how much you want them, but also explain that we need to make sure that we are continuing to grow as a group.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, last one, certainly not least. Donors are not one size fits all. We all know this. Oftentimes there are these natural donor segments that already exist in your organization. And if you really sit down for just a moment and think about it, we have our major donors, our mid-level donors, our businesses that are giving, monthly donors, businesses, churches, online tools, social media, all these different areas and different ways that funding is coming through to our organization. We have to put a strategy in place for each one of these different areas because each one of these different groups obviously is involved with you for a different reason. They value something different from your organization. What a foundation might value in partnering with you is very different from what someone who maybe they're running a 5K for you and it was more of a grassroots collecting money from family members. They want different things from you. A foundation is saying, oh, yep, it's this criteria, it's this checklist, they're moving our personal mission forward, or our foundation's mission forward, perfect. It's more of a checkbox type of thing. Someone on the grassroots side or even a major donor, there's so much more emotional investment. It's maybe more of a team, it's more of a collaborative investment, it's more, maybe it's a legacy investment. So every way you treat that donor needs to have that in mind, that what is the donor getting from your organization? And so this really comes into play in so many areas, and honestly, this topic could really be a whole webinar in itself, but what is that donor experience that each one of these groups is getting from you? Are they getting different attention? Obviously, you're going to give your major donors a different level of attention and a different exclusive experience than some other areas. That they want to hear different messaging, and especially, they need to be solicited. Your constituents need to be solicited. That's going to look very different to many different donors. But if you just, I have a silly example, but if you really think about it, it helps me really filter through all these different types of donors and how they want to be spoken to. You wouldn't go on your Facebook page today and say, happy Friday, we're looking for a $50,000 donor today. Email me if you can do it.
Yeah, but you might tell them, hey, if you're shopping for Mother's Day for your mom and want to give an extra gift to our cause, use iGive, because then your shopping will make a donation to our organization as well. Kill two birds with one stone kind of thing.
Perfect example. For a certain group of our constituency, that is a perfect ask. For the first example, it's not a perfect ask. It just makes sense. It's a silly example, but when you start really diving into these different groups, you can really start customizing what their experience is with you. One area that I'm going to sit on just for a minute, and mainly, all of these are such important areas, but I'll say just, with the time we have, one area where I really see, A, some really neat things happening, but also B, where I see the ball being dropped a lot, is in that thanking process. And this is donor retention. This is someone who's given you a gift, and you've got to move into, oh my goodness, awesome. How are we going to keep that gift next year? Or how are we going to grow that gift next year? It is all about your response to that gift. And so there are creative ways you can do this. There are just, your kind of basic ways you can do this, but you have to have a plan. Now we're going to go back to the first kind of example. You've got to be proactive. You've got to have a plan. You've got to know what happens when that gift hits your inbox. So I always recommend that you and your team have sat down and you have talked through all the different ways gifts come into your organization. Are they online? Are they from the website? Are they from PayPal? Are they checks that are mailed in? Are they gifts from foundations? Are they in-kind gifts? Are they gifts through iGift? Whatever it is. According to the gift size, what is that plan? You know, this organization, if it's a gift that lands in their post office box, if it's 10K and above, these things just automatically happen. You know, this gentleman, Joel, he records it in the database. There's a phone call from the development director within 24 hours. There's a typed acknowledgement directed with a dual signature from the ED and the development director within 24 hours. And then there's a handwritten note from a board member, you know, within a certain amount of time.
But one of the things I love on your chart is that you even have the $1 to $2,500, that you have that small gift. You know, a lot of the research we've done at iGive shows that when we send a check, if you allow us, we post it on your Facebook page telling everyone that we just sent a check to your cause, but your cause administrator can then go in, look at the dashboard and see that, oh, Sherry made a purchase this month that contributed to that check. And there's a place where you can just click and it gives you all the text for an email, and you can send off an email right away saying, hey, Sherry, thanks. It takes about 60 seconds. It's that little step, and we find that that person is more likely to shop again when they get that little email that just says, hey, we're acknowledging that you did this and thank you.
That's such valuable data that iGive is giving to people who are using this, because not all systems like this are going to give you access to the people who are giving or shopping, in this case, for their organization. Look at that data, see who's giving, make sure they're in your own donor database. You may have some super active shopper that might be your top person. Maybe there's other ways you can be engaging them. I would also say, which is not on here, pick up the phone. You know, it's like we get so caught in email. Donor development is relationship building. Surprise them. Oh my goodness, we got a $500 donation online today. Just pick up the phone. You know, people are shocked when I say, hey, you know what, I'm just picking up the phone today. I just wanted to say thank you for this generous gift, and I wanted to introduce myself and wanted just to say I want to be a resource to you if you want to learn any more about our organization. Did you have any questions? We're so thankful for you today.
You also don't know who else has access to other resources, so maybe that person who only made a $200 gift actually has matched giving at work, and they didn't actually realize that if they had submitted their receipt for the donation to their office, that their office would match the giving. Or maybe there's someone who's working on their estate planning.
Right.
And because you reached out and did that, even if they were a small donor, when, you know, in the long run, they might become someone who is much more critically important, and you would have never known that if you hadn't reached out to say thank you for that $25 gift.
Yeah, you've got to personalize it as much as you can, especially in this day and age when we're doing so much, so much electronically to personalize it.
I will say, Sally wrote in that the office manager writes a personal note on the official receipt. I think that that's a great step, but I think sometimes even just including a little card that's separate so that it's not just a part of the receipt, so that person feels like it's truly a personalized experience, really can make a difference.
Right, and just one last point on this. There's the initial, oh my goodness, thank you for the gift. We've received it. But don't forget, if it is a certain size gift, how are you getting back in touch with them 3 months later to say, we're just reaching out today to tell you the impact of what your gift made?
Yeah.
You know, don't let it be a one-time, okay, we thanked them and we're done. Put another note on your Outlook calendar so it reminds you. It's been 3 months since that gift. Call them and tell them what impact their gift has made. Provide a photo of someone. Provide a copy of a letter, a testimony of a changed life, whatever it is. Don't drop the ball. You've got to keep that relationship ball bouncing until the next gift.
Sally also says that for her organization, they use social media, like when a business sends an in-kind donation, and I think that is an awesome tip, Sally, because really that business really appreciates being called out publicly, and it's important for your donors and supporters to know that, hey, I want to support this business because they helped make a contribution to my cause. So I think that that's a really great tip to share. So thank you.
That goes back to what does a business value from your organization? They want people to know that they're being amazingly generous, and they want their name recognition. You know, not everyone is going to want the name recognition, but it's important for a business often to get name recognition. So that's perfect. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Okay, so pitfalls, and we'll wrap up this fifth one. Treating all donors the same. Take the time, pause, really make sure you're understanding what your donors value. You may want to ask them, in some instances. Don't just assume they all value the same thing. They just all love what we're doing. There's reasons for giving. Your donors must be asked. Actively solicit your donors. Don't throw something out there and cross your fingers. Solicit your donors for gift. And then the last two are really tied to what we just said. Put a plan in place. Retain these donors. Knock their socks off with how thankful you are for their gift. Knock their socks off in reporting back to them what an impact their gift made on your organization.
Right.
So lastly, this is really just a recap slide that deserves a lot of time, but whether you call it moves management or it's basic sales 101, you're going to get the best gift from your donors, the best decision on what that gift size is when you really have taken them through a very relational experience. You've gotten to know them, you know what they value, you've connected with them, you've identified, what's going to keep them from giving me their best gift, and you've answered those questions, and you've asked them for that gift. And then they've made their best decision. They've hopefully given you the best gift that they can that year. And that your response to that gift is really exceptional and makes them feel like they are just the most important donor to you. That is a really satisfying donor experience. And this takes time. I cannot express that. This is not a 2-week process to meet somebody. This process can be 2 years for somebody. But it will pay off and it will get you past that plateau.
Well, thank you so much, Sherry. We really appreciate it. Now we're going to take some time to get to some Q&A here. And I think, Rob, did we have a question that we had missed here?
Cindy asks, where do you find these awesome board members?
This is, there's no magic phone list that I can email out to everybody. But honestly, I'll oftentimes say, treat board members like you would when you're trying to find your major donors. This is all about networking. This is a long process. This is not we need 5 new board members and hopefully they can come to next month's meeting. Unfortunately, it's similar to prospecting. It's researching. It's it's cause researching what they've been involved with. It's their expertise researching. It's getting to know people whose circles they're in. It is long, detailed networking.
It is, and you know what though? There is some technology to help with that too. One of the nice things about LinkedIn is that it allows people to put if they're interested in becoming a part of a board or what kinds of organizations. So please use your LinkedIn networks, use your active members LinkedIn networks to see if they have people that are out there and maybe reach out to them that way and say, hey, you say on your profile you're looking to be a board member. I actually had someone who called me and said, hey, Lena, you had an undergraduate experience in theater. We're running a theater company. Would you be interested in being on our board? And I said, I'm really busy right now, but I actually know someone else who has my similar skill set who really is looking for this opportunity, so I was able to direct them that way. So sometimes it's not actually asking the person directly, but saying, hey, do you know someone who can do that? And I would encourage you to use LinkedIn for that purpose because I think that it has some great resources. Rob, we have some more questions.
We have lots of questions coming in.
Awesome.
April asks us, what are your thoughts on donor appreciation events as annual thank yous, in addition to immediate thank yous?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate. My advice might be don't cast your net so giant. Part of thanking, especially to a mid-level and major level donors, is really that it feels intimate and exclusive. They're really being personally thanked. So I would say watch those instances, but I love things like that. It's, a lot of times if it's especially like a community type of organization, it's also just a great networking time, and it's good for people to say, oh, I didn't know that John and Susie down the road were also giving to this organization. Cool. That's great. I'm glad we have a similar cause. So make your donors feel like you can't do this without them, because frankly you can't.
Sally made a comment specifically saying asking for volunteers to head a committee is a great first step to lead them to the board. We have a question from Rink for Lena. This one's close to my heart. How do you see on iGive.com who is shopped?
So every cause administrator can sign on to iGive. You have to sign on with your own individual membership. It's a big question in support. People get confused by that. But you sign in with your own individual membership, and then you click on cause in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll be taken to the cause dashboard. And on that cause dashboard is a link to see who has contributed to my most recent check. You can also look to see who's been dormant. So if you had shoppers who maybe last year were giving you a lot of money and haven't done anything in a couple of months, there's a link there that says send to dormant people as well. So you can say, hey, you know what, thank you for your past support. We noticed you haven't given in a while. Just wanted to check in and, say thank you and let you know that we do appreciate those donations. So sign into iGive.com, click on cause in the upper right-hand corner, and on that cause dashboard, you will need your cause ID and your cause password, which are separate if you don't know them. Fill out a ticket at support.igive.com, and we'll send you a link to reset your cause password.
So we run out of time for questions, and I heard a lot more things there that I would like to know about. How do we contact either of you guys?
Well, first of all, the webinar will be posted at support.igive.com, so you can see that. And support.igive.com is our knowledge base. So there's lots of information there for iGive specific questions, and that's where you can submit a ticket. The ticket will go to the support team, and they will get it to me or to Sherry. But additionally, we really appreciate Sherry being here and taking her time out of her day. If you would like to reach out to her directly for some consulting on how your cause could possibly grow or move beyond a plateau, quamtaylor.com is her website, and you can email her at sherry@quamtaylor.com. While she is based in the Chicagoland area, she has clients all around the world, and technology is a wonderful thing and lets her work with anybody, almost anywhere. So please feel free to reach out to her. Again, if you don't have time to write this stuff down on your slides, support.igive.com, and just say, I'm looking to get in touch with Sherry, and we will make that connection for you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate, Sherry, you being here with us today. To everyone who joined us, we appreciate that as well. This was a new kind of webinar for us, trying to provide a little bit more broad-based information as opposed to iGive specific information. If there are other topics or ideas that you would like to hear from us, please shoot me a note at support.igive.com. Just open a ticket and let us know what you would be interested in learning about. If you know of a great expert like Sherry that you'd like to have host a webinar, let us know that too, because we're always looking to make sure we are providing value to you, our members. And just one final note before we go, causes, the end of the month ends the $5 iGive button bonus. So please make sure that if you have members who have not yet joined and not yet installed the iGive button, they can do that, and we'll get a $5 bonus for using the iGive button for Mac or PC. And Mother's Day is coming up too, so double dip. Get your mom a great gift and get your cause a great gift as well. So on that note, I will say thank you to everyone, and we look forward to hosting you again at a future webinar.